Hey everyone, I'm your host Anthony. We do content like this weekly, so hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified. If you want more content like this, click the like button and please leave a comment. Thanks again for watching. Hey everyone, and welcome to today's live class. We're so excited to have you here and we're looking forward to an amazing presentation. My name is Anthony and I will be your host. I'm joined on the line by Dr. Dan Kalish of the Kalish Institute. He will be conducting the presentation today, and I'm going to pass it off to him in just a moment to kick off today's topic, which is titled Mitochondrial Conditions, Lab-Based Supplement Program. So this is going to be a really good, informative presentation today. Much needed course. I know we're going to learn a lot. Before we begin though, I'd like to go over just a couple housekeeping items. Everyone is muted by default. And secondly, if you have any questions during the course of this live class, please submit them into the chat panel. The questions will come to me as the host, and I'll be conducting a live question and answer with Dr. Kalish at the end of today's presentation. And lastly, at the end of today's live class, Adrian Martinez, our head of practitioner partnerships at Rupa Health, is going to be doing a live demonstration for all of you. So if you are new to Rupa Health, feel free to stick around just a bit and learn how we can help you optimize your practice. And if you already use Rupa Health, feel free to hop off at that time. And again, thank you so much for your continued support. So I'd now like to hand it off to Dr. Dan Kalish to begin today's presentation.
Thank you so much for providing a forum for me to talk to people. Appreciate it. And yeah, we are very excited in the functional medicine community to have Rupa Health around. In my mentorship program, we talk about it every week. People are so happy with the service they offer. And hey, it's about time. It's how I felt about when Uber and Lyft first started. It's about time someone figured out how to disrupt the cab industry, and I don't have to take taxi cabs everywhere anymore. So anyways, it's a super great, innovative program, and I'm happy about it. Anything that helps our profession move forward, I'm pretty excited about. So we're going to talk today. It's as a follow-up, and it's related to the previous talk I did on damaged metabolism. So if you haven't heard that one, you may want to go back and listen to it at some point. And this is it's kind of like Star Wars, if you're old enough to remember when the first Star Wars movies came out, and then they made the next series, but the next series were the ones before the other ones. It was like a prequel, sequel kind of thing at the same time. You know, this is like a prequel, sequel. So this is like what you should know before you listen to the other talk, but I did the other talk first. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but the thing here is that what's the most important thing about human physiology is to look at the cells and see how the cells work, and to realize, how do these things get damaged? How do the mitochondria become damaged, and how can you repair them? And then we tied that in a little bit to metabolism in the last talk. But now I want to get more fundamental and think about the enzymes that you use to make things in the mitochondria, to convert things. And then what's making the enzymes, which are amino acids, and what's making the amino acids work when you turn the amino acids into enzymes, which is the B vitamins. So we're just chunking it down to more and more fundamental aspects of human physiology, and getting to that core area where it's just like, this is where things really, really matter. You know, this is where the body can either succeed or fail, basically. And the problem with it is that amino acid treatments have been around for decades. B vitamins have been around since they were discovered, I don't know, in the 50s and 60s. And not that many people talk about them anymore because there's much more interesting things to talk about, you know? And yet these are the fundamental underpinnings. And these two issues, amino acids and B vitamins, if you get them right with your patients, you have to trust me on this one. If you try it on 10 or 20 patients, you're going to be reversing all kinds of chronic health problems. It's just going to be mind-numbing, the benefits you're going to see in your patients. So when I think about this talk, combine it with what we talked about before, which is how the mitochondria work and some things to do with CoQ10 and metabolism, all that. And now we're taking it back a step to amino acids and B vitamins. Okay, so there's some similarities and overlapping here, but you know, it's a little different approach. Okay, so this is me. If this is the first one you've done of these, I've been around for a long time. I'm IFM certified. I've been doing research and trained over 5,000 doctors in how to do this work, and have a very active training program, which you guys can check out if you're interested in that. And we have some stuff coming up for you. This is the first time we've ever done this. In January, we're going to do a lab interpretation workshop on adrenals and GI, and we're going to have 7 one-hour workshops. And this is like nothing fancy. This is like, here's a lab, here's a program that you should do based on this lab. It's not like a deep dive into the science, and it's not a ton of PowerPoint slides, just 100% practical implementation. I worked with the Mayo Clinic a bunch of years ago, and we put together a research study that was published. And we're going to go back and grab those Mayo Clinic cases and present them to you guys, which is cool because we have the pre and post testing on all these patients, and it's just a great way to learn how to do this work. So we're going to get into Dhea and Pregnenolone, how to prescribe those, how to really test and correct adrenal problems. And then we'll look at the research that we did with Mayo in regards to GI infections and the treatments that we used in the Mayo Clinic study for those as well. Okay, so very practical, very hands-on, high-level review of how to do adrenal and GI work. And you've got a $100 Rupa discount off the class if you use that code RHJAN22. And yeah, if you can't remember that code, just go to the Kalos Institute, ask us, email us, and we'll get you the code. Okay, so we're going to look at, and again, I'm kind of expecting that at some point you can go back and listen to that other talk because we want to take off from there. We'll talk a little bit about oxidative stress in the brain and mitochondrial function, but I really want to focus on amino acids. So I'm going to skip through some of these slides kind of quickly as a little refresher, all right? And then we'll get into the main part of the talk. So the major source of reactive oxygen species, right, of oxidative stress in the body is from mitochondrial energy production. When we look at labs in the last part of this class, you're going to see people who have a lot of oxidative stress and a lot of mitochondrial damage, and we're going to talk about how to reverse that. This also has a big impact on the brain, has a big impact, obviously, on the heart, has a big impact on your liver detox capacity. And glutathione is sort of the protector of this system. Glutathione is also competing with methylation in this system. And where we want to focus today is on the B vitamins, okay? The B vitamins, such a simple thing, but quite interesting and complex at the same time. So many people that you're going to work with have genetic issues. Really, I mean, I could go out on a limb and just say every individual that you work with has different biochemical needs for B vitamins. Now, sometimes there's such extreme needs. The famous one is MTHFR, you know, the need for folate went up. But everybody, every human being has a slightly different need for B vitamins, and they're very often a wide enough or broad enough need for B vitamins that if you don't get this part right, they're going to suffer and not get better real fast. And we'll talk a little bit about how B vitamins work, but essentially B vitamins are considered cofactors or coenzymes that get these enzymes to do their thing. And we're going to look at some enzymes in a minute. And what are these enzymes? These enzymes, not digestive enzymes, we're talking about the enzymes that create the pathways in the citric acid cycle, in the beta oxidation cycle, in the glycolysis cycle, and all these different pathways, right? Whether it's the burning of carb or burning of fat, they're burning up of acetyl-CoA in the citric acid cycle, all these, every step is an enzyme, okay? And every one of those enzymes is made of amino acids. And if you're missing one amino acid of the 20, if you're missing one amino acid of the 20 that you need, you can't make enzymes adequately. And there's something like 20 to 30,000 proteins in the body that rely upon the same exact 20 amino acids. Is that crazy? It's really crazy. And if you look at the different proteins that we make, whether it's a protein that's related to your heart or a protein that's related to, you know, your toe or all these have almost the exact same profile of amino acids. So we use the same amino acids in the same amounts to make all of the tissues in the body. What varies is the sequence of the amino acids. And we're going to look at some of these sequences in a minute and some diagrams that show you what these actual proteins look like physically. They can map these proteins out very, very accurately now. And if the amino acids are strung together just a little bit off, then that enzyme works a little bit differently than it should in an idealized form. And that's what creates the biochemical individuality, as Dr. Roger Williams called it, biochemical individuality that's present in each person. So when you're doing this testing, organic acids, fatty acids, amino acids, nutrient evaluations, what you're really seeing is a manifestation of the patient's genes, their genetics, and the environment, the way that they've eaten, where they've lived, the toxins that they've been exposed to. And the lab then reveals not only are you eating the right foods, but how is your body set up? What does your body need in terms of a B vitamin or an amino acid to work properly? And if you have mitochondrial problems, by definition, you're going to have problems with amino acids and B vitamins. That's kind of what's happening, right? And if you can get specific about exactly where the problems are, and when we look at the labs, you'll see in detail which enzyme's not working. Is it the succinate dehydrogenase enzyme that's not working? Is it which B vitamin's not working? Is it B6 that's the problem? Or is it biotin? It matters, right? Because when you're doing your supplement prescribing based on the labs, if you know that they need 200 milligrams of B6, that's what's going to make that enzyme work properly, because the B6 is a cofactor, coenzyme. And if you give them 25 milligrams of B6, it's probably not going to make a difference. Maybe a little difference, but not enough that anyone's going to get excited about it. So when you're thinking about how we assemble these enzymes that we use to make everything, it's amino acids. And when you think about how we get those actual enzymes to work, it's the B vitamins, okay? And that's what we want to focus on for today. So again, I'm going to skim through some of these slides. Some of it's a little bit of a review, but with the mitochondria, this is why we breathe. So when you think of mitochondria, you should think of 3 nutrients, boom, boom, boom. CoQ10, magnesium, and oxygen. CoQ10, magnesium, and oxygen. Anyone with a mitochondrial problem, you should probably give them CoQ10, magnesium. Oxygen, you don't have to sell them. We have it in a supplement form, right? Oxygen is basically breathing and breathing exercises. Okay, then I also want to remind you that glutathione is protecting the brain. It's competing with methylation. So all the B vitamins are directly tied into not only the running of the mitochondria, but the processing that we call methylation and how that relates to glutathione. And remember, glutathione is protecting the mitochondria. It's competing with methylation, and the B vitamins are all in that mix. So if for no other reason you want to give B vitamins, just for this reason alone, B6, B12, and folate have to be given to get this methylation thing to work, to get the glutathione thing to work, so you can protect your mitochondria, okay? And when we look at labs, we'll look at some testing. You can measure CoQ10, you can measure magnesium. We covered that before. That was kind of obvious and almost self-evident, okay? And organic acids checks all this stuff, and we'll show some of those in a moment. But I want to show you here, I'm going to skip forward a little bit to the ones that I want to focus on here. And I'm going to move around a little bit in this lecture, but let me show you what it really matters here. Okay, here. So your body assembles enzymes. And let me just show you one real quick here. It's at the end. Here's an example of an enzyme. This one is called Succinate Dehydrogenase, right? It's a big one. You can see these ribbony things. It's embedded in a membrane, in a mitochondrial membrane. And this is made up of, those ribbony things are hundreds and hundreds of amino acids that are strung together to form this enzyme. So when we look at the labs and you see this succinate as a marker on the test, what we're measuring on the organic acids test is the functioning of this succinate dehydrogenase enzyme. Okay, and you can see how huge this thing is. You imagine there's hundreds of amino acids. If one of these amino acids in here is out of sequence, the enzyme doesn't work that well. And then what does that mean? Well, in order to get it to work properly, you're going to need more of a given B vitamin. And here I've got a picture of the actual B vitamin. So you can see this is the same enzyme, succinate dehydrogenase. And what does it do? It takes succinate, converts it to fumarate. Those are on the test that we're about to measure. So you want to remember those. Takes a succinate, converts it to fumarate, all right? And then here's your FADH2. That's a fancy way of saying vitamin B2, right? So if the enzyme's formed just a little bit off, you need more B2 to make it work than the average person would. That's biochemical individuality. And if you don't have enough B2 and you have a little bit of a problem with this enzyme, the citric acid cycle, the mitochondrial function gets compromised and the patient can't make energy. And by the way, you can see the succinate converting to fumarate. The B2 is lodged right in the middle of that enzyme, right? That's where it is. And then you can see the electrons coming down here over to ubiquinol, which is a fancy way of saying CoQ10, because CoQ10 is moving these electrons around, okay? So again, we're thinking about an enzyme, and enzyme structure is the key to this whole thing. So here's another picture of the same enzyme, complex 2, also known as succinate dehydrogenase. As part of the electron transport chain, it has riboflavin or vitamin B2 as a coenzyme. So what does that mean? A coenzyme is required for the enzyme to work. It's the non-protein portion of the enzyme is another way of thinking about it. So you've got the enzyme sitting there, and then it's not doing anything, really. It's just sitting there. And it's not making a whole lot of conversion of succinate to fumarate until that little B2 molecule comes around and it goes, oh, there's a succinate dehydrogenase enzyme. Zoop, that's where I'm supposed to be. And they bond together. You can see the bonding here in this picture, right? That B2 is just crammed in there. And when the B2 crams in there, then this thing starts working. It's like turning the ignition in a car or something. The car is sitting there. You're not going anywhere. You turn the ignition on and boom, now you're going, right? The B2 turns the ignition on. Your body could make this enzyme. You could have perfect mitochondrial enzymes, just everything sitting around looking beautiful for every enzyme that you need. And if you're missing vitamin B2, the whole thing is useless. That's how important the B vitamins are. And there's no like B vitamin advocacy group in our industry. There's no one out there. There's never been a supplement sales rep that came up to you and said, gosh, have you sold enough B vitamins this week? You know, because they're cheap. Nobody cares about B vitamins. They're just old news. The way that our industry works is on new and cool things. But what I'm trying to say, we're in the prequel here, right? We're in the story behind the story. This is really where human physiology at its fundamental gets expressed, right? And there's not that many of them, and they're named in an easy way to remember because they all have numbers, right? B1, B2, B3. They skipped 4 for some reason. I don't know the history behind that. B5, B6, you know, and then you should throw in folate. You know, probably B12 is pretty important in biotin. So there's not that many of them. They all do slightly different things. And you can buy them all in a capsule all together, right? And if you get sophisticated with this work and you have a problem like with this enzyme, you could give the patient some extra B2. And if their succinate dehydrogenase enzyme's not working, how do you know that? Because you're going to see on the labs that we're looking at in a minute that succinate and fumarate are messed up. Okay, those markers are messed up. If you give enough B2, this enzyme's going to start to work and you're going to fire up that mitochondria and it's going to come back online. Okay, and so when you see these charts and graphs and they show which B vitamin is related to which step in energy production, this is what we're talking about. The B vitamins activate the enzyme, and then the enzyme starts to do stuff. In the case of this enzyme, you can see it's grabbing electrons and moving them along so we can make energy, right? Doesn't get more important than that, okay? So we'll just go back here in time. Here we go. So coenzyme cofactors, we all learned this in school, but you kind of forget about the details here, remembering that the coenzyme, or the B vitamin, is the non-protein portion of the enzyme. We'll talk about the protein portion next. And the coenzyme part of the enzyme is the part that is required to make it work. So if you don't have the coenzyme, the entire amount of energy and time that your body put into making the enzyme has been completely 100% wasted. It's just going to sit there and do nothing. Okay, and so in a way, you could say the B vitamins are more important than the enzyme, kind of, in a way, all right? And so we also want to look at the enzymes in detail and say, well, how are these things made in the first place? What if there's a defect with the enzyme? It's not built quite right. Or what if I don't have all 20 amino acids in sufficient amounts? Then you can't build the amino acid properly either. And when we look at labs, you'll see how many people have deficiencies in amino acids. If you don't give the amino acids that are missing, you don't have that 20 amino acids you need to make the enzymes, then you have an even bigger problem in a way. It's not a B vitamin problem. It's like you don't have enough enzymes. They're just not even being produced, or they're being produced in a slightly kind of twisted, cattywampus kind of way. Okay, so let's look here. And now when we talk about enzymes, every one of these steps, right? There's an enzyme that or enzymes that convert fats to acetyl-CoA so we can make energy. There's the pyruvate dehydrogenase enzyme that takes pyruvate and converts it. There's a lactate dehydrogenase enzyme that converts lactate. There's enzymes in each one of these steps. I just showed you one of them where here's succinate going to fumarate, right? There's that enzyme that we just saw. That's what makes that step happen. So if you see a problem with succinate and fumarate, you know that that enzyme is not working well, okay? And when you see a high marker on organic acids, or you see a low B vitamin marker, or you see a low amino acid marker, then there's something screwed up about the structure that we're talking about here. Okay, so there's at least 3 ways you can identify that. Let me say that one more time. If you see on organic acids that the markers are high, that means the enzyme's not working right. Doesn't tell you exactly why, but it shows you that it's not working right. If you see a low amino acid on a test, it means you don't have the 20 amino acids you need to make the enzyme. So you're like seriously in trouble. And if you see a B vitamin marker that's off, you could have the enzyme present, but it doesn't matter because you don't have the B vitamin to make it work. So when you take all this together, and we all have this biochemical individuality that's happening, if you simply give the person the missing amino acids that they need, they can make the enzymes properly. If you give them the missing B vitamins that they need, the enzymes will start to work properly. And if you do both those things, people are going to think you're some kind of magician, super special, supernatural, amazing doctor, because you're the only one that ever figured out their problem. And the more that these problems are genetically related for a given patient, the sicker that the person gets, because nobody ever figures these things out, you know, and the patient just goes from doctor to doctor wondering why they have so many problems. And here's another image of the same thing. So this is that succinate dehydrogenase enzyme. This one's kind of cool. Again, you can see at the bottom here, succinate converts to fumarate. Why are we obsessing on that? Because it's on organic acids. This is just an example of one of the enzymes. We don't have time to get into all of them. I just wanted to show you one, okay? And that succinate converting to fumarate, if those markers are off on the test, you know there's a problem. Where is this thing physically located? It's in the mitochondrial membrane. So this is mitochondrial function 101. And there's all these fancy things in here, but what you really need to remember is you need amino acids to build it, and you need B2 to make it work. Amino acids to build it, B2 to make it work. Now, if we go back here and we're looking at other enzymes, you could say, well, you need amino acids to make that one work, and you need B1 and B3 to make it work. You need amino acids to build this guy over here, and you need B5 to make it work. So it's the same basic story for each of these enzymes. You need all 20 amino acids to build the enzyme, and you need either niacin or riboflavin or pantothenic acid or some B vitamin, thiamine, to make it work, okay? And if this is overwhelming and confusing, then you don't even have to get into the specifics of it. You can just give somebody a free-form amino acid powder that has all the amino acids in it. You can't get that wrong, right? You can't go wrong because you're just giving them all of them, right? And that's not a bad thing to do. I do that all the time. I mean, if you don't, you know, I know how to figure out which one they need, but sometimes it's just better to just give them all the aminos. So you give them a free-form amino acid powder, a teaspoon or 2 of it, that covers all the aminos. Now you don't have to worry about which one they're low in. And then with the B vitamins, you give them a B complex once or twice a day. Now you just covered all your B vitamins. So now you're not like sweating out whether you got enough thiamine in there and do they need more thiamine or more niacin or whatever. Just give them a B complex once or twice a day. Give them free-form amino acids in a powder, 1 or 2 teaspoons once or twice a day, and you'll cover all your bases here. It's kind of cheating a little bit, you know, but if you're in your first 5 years of doing this and you're a little overwhelmed and you don't know how to or want to take the time, or you're not confident enough to figure out exactly which amino acids you might want to use the combination powders, and you've got your bases covered, right? Now, this is how we all learned about B vitamins in school. It's just sort of like key lock example, right? The enzyme's inactive without the coenzyme. Here we have the coenzyme coming in, and now you can do stuff. The chemical reaction takes place. What we're talking about today is the chemical reactions that make up what the mitochondria does. And we're saying that If according to Roger Williams, I've got a slide on him back here. You guys, if you haven't read his book, you should read his book. Here he is, Roger Williams. Biochemical Individuality is the name of his book. You should for sure read it if you haven't yet. And I mean, this is a while ago. Okay, he got his PhD like over 100 years ago. It's not exactly new information. That's crazy, isn't it? It's like 100 years ago. And still, we haven't figured this stuff out. Anyways, he's the one that discovered a lot of these vitamins. And the first thing that he did when he discovered folate and pantothenic acid, the first thing he did, because this guy was like extra smart, the first thing he did was realize that there's biochemical individuality, there's genetic differences in how much of this stuff people need. And he wrote books about that in the 1950s. If you haven't read that book, you should read it. It's called Biochemical Individuality. Again, it's a kind of a classic. Okay, so that's the B vitamin story, right? Now, the amino acid part of the story, and this is now, it's more, how could I say it? It's like hard to put this into words, you know. It's the very construction of each aspect of mitochondrial function that we're talking about now. So we're not talking about kind of complicated higher level things. We're talking about just the physical foundations and structure of each component of the mitochondria. This is so important and so foundational that people skip over it most of the time. In fact, I was giving a lecture a couple months ago to a pretty high-end group of doctors, like ones that have been in practice for a long time and are really smart. And when I got into this portion of the talk, there was a couple of people that, you know, just freaked out because they realized that they had never conceptually seen it this way, you know? And so this is one of these things, it's so basic and so fundamental that we skip over it. So if you listen to this talk once or twice, you'll get it. And this will be something you can use and apply to patients for the rest of your career. It's going to put you just at a whole nother league, a whole nother level, okay? So when we're making a protein, and we're talking about specific proteins right now, we're talking about the proteins that are used in the citric acid cycle, right? In the production of energy from fat, from carbohydrates. But this extends out to all proteins in the body. You need to have 20 amino acids strung together. And what makes each protein different is the sequence of the amino acids. If you're missing one of the amino acids, this whole idea of proteomics completely falls apart. You can't make a protein if you're missing one of the 20 amino acids. It doesn't work. It would be like trying to build, I don't know, motorcycles, but you didn't have the rear wheels. I mean, you could build a motorcycle, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't go anywhere. If you gun the engine, the whole thing would just spin and like probably twist around and crash. So if you're missing one amino acid, it's like a motorcycle without a rear wheel. It's still kind of a motorcycle, but it's not going to function properly. Okay. And again, the simple treatment is just give people all the amino acids in a powder. Complicated treatment, we'll look at when we look at labs in a few minutes. You can isolate it down. And I had a patient 2 days ago. This is so obscure, but it's true. Her amino acid profile looked really good, and she was low in threonine. You may have not even heard of threonine or thought about threonine in the last 10 or 15 years. It's not something I wake up in the mornings and think about either. And it was the only one that was low. And that one obscure amino acid that she was missing was screwing up her body's ability to make every single protein. So you don't think of threonine as like a blockbuster treatment option for chronic illness, but hey, if that's what you're missing, that's going to screw up your mitochondrial function. That's going to screw up all your protein synthesis. And what are other sort of important things that are proteins? Well, that would include all antibodies in the human body. If you're worried about, say, you know, a viral infection perhaps, or getting sick in some way, you need antibodies. You can't make antibodies unless you have all 20 amino acids, because antibodies are proteins. You can't make hemoglobin. This is the structure of hemoglobin in the lower left-hand corner. Kind of important that you can carry oxygen around to different parts of your body so you can function. If you're missing one amino acid like threonine, you can't make hemoglobin. You can't make the thyroid hormones. You can't make a lot of things that are proteins. So when you step back, and I'm getting kind of old, but I don't feel old. I'm 57 now. I've been doing this for 29 years. When you step back and you kind of look at, a career like that, and you realize that the bulk of the patients that I've treated have had a dozen or two problems. It's very rare that we have a patient that just has one problem with one solution and then we fix it. Like once in a while that happens. I don't know. Maybe someone comes in and they have heartburn and they have H. pylori, and we get rid of the H. pylori, and that was the only thing that was going on. But that's really rare. Almost everybody that we treat has multiple problems across all different body systems. They have a little bit of a hormone thing, a little detox thing. They got a big problem with their gut. Maybe they're depressed, and when you look at it from a global perspective, you realize what links these things together are the amino acids. Why? Not because of the individual functions of the amino acids, but because they are all 20 of them involved in protein synthesis. So we're talking about this today in the context of mitochondrial function, which is kind of extra important in that context, but this applies to all body systems and all proteins throughout the body, right? And then there's kind of a trick question too, which I could ask, which Richard, I know my teacher in this work is Richard Lord, and he's the scientist that developed all these tests that we use, that I use anyways, organic acids. He was the scientist that did that. He did the first amino acids and fatty acids test. And every month or two, he'll test me and he'll say, oh, Dan, it looks like that patient's low in tryptophan. Wow, so what are when you're teaching your classes, what do you tell your students, what's tryptophan for? Okay. And if you say serotonin production, it's wrong, because the main role of tryptophan is its role in producing proteins. Which proteins? All proteins in the human body, except for collagen. Okay, all proteins in the human body, except for collagen, have a rate limiting step, and that rate limiting step is tryptophan. If you don't have enough tryptophan, and of them all the amino acids, it's the one in your body that's the smallest by percentage. So if you're off just a little bit with tryptophan, all protein synthesis is interfered with. Okay, that's going to screw up your mitochondria. It's going to screw up your heart. It's going to screw up your brain. And so when you have patients that have these multiple problems in all these body systems, and you're doing all these labs, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. Where do you want to start? You want to start with this, because this is the foundation of the cell working right. This is a foundation of you being able to make things in your body, the amino acids, and then to make those things work, especially the mitochondria, but a lot of other systems too, it's the B vitamins, okay? And I kind of was joking about the sequel prequel thing. I don't even, that wasn't very funny really, but I learned the more advanced version of this work, and I was 23 years into practice until I met Dr. Lord, and he started to train me on amino acids and B vitamins, and I realized, wow, I should have learned this first because it's fundamental. It's the basics of how things are built and how things work in the body. And we're using the mitochondria as an example today, but this extends out to every body system and every tissue. So the same conceptual framework of amino acids converting into proteins, the whole subject of this called proteomics, the ability to capture the images of the proteins like you see here on the screen, and then to understand how the vitamins or other cofactors, there's other cofactors, obviously magnesium is another classic one, could be a mineral like magnesium, how the other cofactors relate to make this work are kind of the central underpinnings of clinical nutrition and clinical treatments. And the way that I was taught, and the way I see these classes taught the most often in our industry, is to get into this really high level stuff and to never really come back and say, well, how do you make all these things and what makes them work? And now we're circling right back to B vitamins and amino acids, okay? All right, so, and we want to tie this into the mitochondria because that's the whole point of this talk, but I want you to also see the broader applications, because when you do a mitochondrial program, you're going to see all kinds of other symptoms clear up. And this just happens to me every day in my practice. It's happened a couple of days ago, last week maybe. Patient was getting colds and flus all the time, kind of worried about her immune system. She's a skier. She was on the US Olympic ski team. I don't think she was like the best skier, but she was like a really good skier. You know, she's a really fit woman, and she now leads all these ski trips and stuff. She's really fit. And, you know, one of the things that she was saying was that we were working on her mitochondrial program, and it was giving her amino acids and B vitamins. And one of her main comments in our consultation was that she hasn't gotten any colds or flus in the year that we've been doing this. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. You didn't even tell me that was a problem. She's like, yeah, it was a really big problem. I was getting sick all the time. It was kind of a bummer because I don't like to ski when I'm sick and I have to take days off of work and whatever, you know. And so that wasn't even on her list of complaints. I didn't even know about it until it was gone. Maybe she didn't think I could help with it. But the fact that we got her mitochondria working with amino acids and B vitamins meant that she was also making antibodies appropriately so that her immune system came on, back online too. So that's a more global way of thinking about this stuff. Okay, so we're going to look at labs in a minute, but let me just wrap up the lecture part. So number one, the mitochondria sustain damage from a variety of sources. If you're confused about that, listen to the previous lecture, because that was about a damaged mitochondrial system. Once they're damaged, the mitochondria lack the ability to make ATP for basic energy needs. So then we're having a shutdown of the brain, the heart, the muscle tissues. That makes people depressed, makes them tired all the time, makes them get hurt because their muscles are all screwed up and they're inflamed everywhere. And then these metabolic disturbances are going to result in all these depression type symptoms, fatigue symptoms that we see. Okay. And now, reminder for those of you that joined us late, we have a brand new course I'm offering in 2022 in January, and it's a lab interpretation workshop. It's all about adrenal and GI testing. We're going to review case after case after case, and I'm going to show you protocol after protocol after protocol. And we have the pre-testing, and we have the 6-month post-labs on each of these cases that I'm presenting. So you can see how the patient was when we started, you can see exactly what I did, and you can see how they were at the 6-month retest. Now this happens to be the exact data that we used in a published study that I did with the Mayo Clinic, which is kind of cool, that they were interested in this work. And when we did that study, it was published in 2016, basically we took 25 people who were totally stressed. They were all women in professional positions, and we did adrenal and GI testing on them. I put them on my programs, and then we did follow-up testing 6 months later, and I wrote that up with doctors from the Mayo Clinic and got it published. And so we're going to kind of break that down, and you can see the detail there of how these cases unfold. And every one of these cases, we used DHEA and pregnenolone to correct the HPA axis. And then when indicated, based on the GI testing, we did the antiparasitic, antibacterial stuff and all that. Okay, so that's what that workshop's going to be about, is really diving into how to fix people's adrenals and GI. The $100 off with a Rupa discount if you use that code. And that's starting soon. That's starting in January. If you're interested, you guys can check that out and sign up. Okay. So now if we have a few minutes left, and I think we do, I want to show you some labs. And let me just remind you what we're looking at. We're going to look at this one enzyme we're kind of picking on today as an example, the Succinate Dehydrogenase enzyme. Okay. We're going to look at the idea of amino acids, and you need all 20 amino acids to make these enzymes, to make all enzymes. Which enzymes? All enzymes. And we're going to look at B vitamins as cofactors. Okay. So let's take a glance at labs now. And here is lab number 1. Hang on a second. Sorry. Let's see. Oh, hang on. Got messed up there. Let's try a different one here. There, let's try lab number 2. There we go. All right. That should pop up on your screen. So I use Genova, the ion panel, very, very popular also to use NutriVals. There's some other companies that do amino acid testing, but not a ton. So here's an amino acid test, and an organic acids test, and a fatty acid test. And we're screening this and evaluating it strictly for mitochondrial function. Okay, so right off the bat, the first marker on the first page is lysine, and lysine is low. Okay, now I can hear Richard Lord's voice in the back of my mind saying, what does lysine do? Why does it matter that lysine is low? Okay, and all of you should be jumping up and down right now, knocking things over in your office, saying lysine is one of those 20 amino acids you need to make proteins. This is a proteomics problem. This person can't make the enzymes that they need for the mitochondria to function. And I would say right on, you got the whole point. One amino acid like lysine being low means all the enzymes in the body are going to be compromised in terms of production. Simple as that. Now, this person also has low glycine. Okay, so they need some lysine and some glycine. How much? Usually you want to start with around 1,500 to 3,000, let's say 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of whatever amino acid is missing. Okay. And if that's an overwhelming thing and it kind of freaks you out a little bit, then just do, combination powder, 1 or 2 teaspoons of a free-form amino acid combination powder. Now we're scanning and looking for mitochondrial problems. So remember magnesium, CoQ10, and oxygen. So this person's low in magnesium. And I'm going to make a little list here: lysine, glycine, magnesium. I'm making up my protocol, okay? And we're forgetting about things that are not related to today's talk. Like they're low in copper too, but we're not talking about copper today. And then CoQ10, those levels are good. You can see at the top of the lab. Don't have to worry about that. And then we're going to skip over a lot of this and look at the mitochondrial markers themselves. So you can see here, there's a lot of lows, a lot of L's. There's a lot of lows here. So there's a sort of underperforming mitochondria, we might say. And you can see under the, we're not talking about the neurotransmitters today, but they're kind of related loosely. Also underperforming with the neurotransmitter markers. You can see markers 22, 23, and 24, they're quite low. Those are basically amino acid problems too, right? So if we're going to design a program for this person, and again, this is not a whole body program. This is a program because we're doing this talk on mitochondria. This is the mitochondrial portion of this person's program. So remember, you always start with magnesium. Just get some chelated form of magnesium. That's the fancier kinds. Let's say it's a 100 milligram tablet and give a couple of them like that and like that. And then CoQ10. This person had normal CoQ10, so you don't have to give the CoQ10. And then oxygen, you're going to give them some breathing exercises. They were low in lysine and glycine. So let's say, let's just do a real 3,000 milligrams of each of those daily. Why? To get protein synthesis going, right? So they can make the enzymes. And then the B vitamin markers were kind of a mess. So again, we just give it some B complex. Maybe one of those there and one of those there. And then some kind of a multi. I like to use these multi-packs, that are kind of convenient because they have all these things together in one pack. So say vitamin mineral pack. And that would be the beginnings of a mitochondrial program for this person. Now you could add to that if you wanted, you could add in like free-form amino acids and whatnot, but you wouldn't have to. All right, so let's look at another example here. Maybe we have one more example and then we can go and see if there's questions. And again, you can do NutriVals, you can do organic acids from a couple different companies. There's a variety of ways to do this. So here's another panel. We're looking at amino acids first. Valine, it's kind of a little low, isn't it? And then taurine and glycine, definitely low. So we have taurine. Now, why do you want to give those? Well, because you need them to make the 20 amino acids. You need those all 20 amino acids to make proteins. Cysteine is low. That's kind of different. That's the one that you need to make glutathione. And then let's see. Yeah, we're kind of saying the same thing there and there. Now let's look at magnesium levels are a little low. You see magnesium low in a lot of people, most people really, to be honest. So we're going to do some of that. It looks like mercury is kind of high. That's not good. And then CoQ10 is okay. So we're not too worried about that. You could give it if you want, but you don't really have to. And then now we're looking at the mitochondrial markers. And we're like, under the B vitamin section, you see the B complex vitamin markers at the bottom there. It's kind of a mess. You can see 4 of them are high. And on the next page, you can see methylmalonate is also high. So methylmalonate is a marker for B12, just so you know. Marker number 18 here, xanthurinate, is a marker for B6. So this person needs extraordinary amounts of B6 and B12. And then 15, 16, and 17, those alpha ketos, known as alpha keto isovalerate, alpha keto isocapronate, these guys, okay, the kind of hard to say ones. Those 3 are all high. That's B complex. So this person needs B complex plus extra B12 and B6. And now you have some idea about why, right? Are those B vitamins just kind of like, oh, maybe I'll give them, maybe I won't? No, those B vitamins are required for the mitochondrial enzymes to get turned on and work properly. If you don't give them, everything else you're going to do is going to be, I wouldn't say useless, but yeah, you could say useless. You could say completely useless if you wanted to be dramatic about it. All right, so let's see. Now this person, we're going to give them magnesium also, and they were low in taurine. Now this is going to get a little tricky here, but this is reality, right? This is a real program we're designing here. So taurine, glycine, and cysteine or cystine. And cysteine we usually use in the form of N-acetylcysteine, okay? Well, so all three of those. And we know we want to give them the B complex, but then we also want to give additional B12 and additional B6. Now, B6 is also known as P5P. Usually it comes in a 50 milligram. B12, you can get in all kinds of ways. You can do a liquid, you can do a capsule. You have a lot of options with that. And so then taurine, glycine, and cysteine. Now, I'm personally thinking, I don't know, that would be a lot of stuff if I gave them each one of those individually. That's 3 bottles of things they have to move, open up every day. And I think that'd be a little overwhelming. So I would use a combo product. And if you poke around in the supplement catalogs, you'll find that all the main supplement companies that we work with professionally are going to have a combo product that has taurine, glycine, and cysteine in it. Okay. So let's say you find one of those and you give like 3 of those twice a day. You got your magnesium, you got your B complex. We can cut the B's back maybe to 1 a day. And then you've got your B12. Let's say you do a tablet form of it. Usually give that in the morning, maybe 1 at noon. You really want to crank up their energy. And you give the B6. I'm a strong proponent of B6 because it really makes a huge difference. So their program would be this person's mitochondrial program, not their entire program, would look something like this. You've got the taurine, glycine, and cysteine all in one product, in a combo product. Again, the companies make those. It's very common that they'll assemble those 3 together. You got your magnesium, your B complex, your B12, and B6. Now you can appreciate, why do you need these aminos? Well, if you look at these aminos, they're also used for detoxification. Cysteine and glycine are both used for glutathione production. Taurine is kind of famous for gallbladder support. It helps you make bile. Taurine is really good for your heart. Taurine is used for a lot of things, but primarily these amino acids are used for protein synthesis. But when you look at the 3 that this person needs, they're all 3 very strongly related to detoxification capacity. So that just makes me a little suspicious here. And let's do 1 more minute and then we'll have questions for the last 10 minutes, okay? Hang on a second. I just got to see this now. These are all real cases of mine. I'm not pretending that I remember exactly who this is, okay? Because I don't have the names on these, but we just saw, oh yeah, okay. Remember we just saw that the three amino acids this person was deficient in are all related to detox. And look at the detox section here. Look at it. You see marker 33 and 34 are high. Major detoxification problem. That ties right back to those amino acids that were problematic. So this person needs to detox. They need to get chemicals and heavy metals out of their tissues. And that glycine, taurine, and N-acetylcysteine will accomplish that. It'll get the detox pathways working. And more importantly, those amino acids are going to help with the proteomics of the situation, right? Especially the glycine. It's going to help with the ability. The glycine is one of the 20 amino acids that's needed for protein synthesis. Not all amino acids are, but that is one of them. And so you've got glycine, cysteine or N-acetylcysteine, and taurine, major detox capacity stimulating that. You've also got the glycine helping with enzyme production throughout the whole body, right? You've got those things covered. So you can start to see how these things overlap and correlate. Well, you'll see the amino acids that are low related to detox. You give them, they're going to start to detox better. But you're also giving amino acids that are required for protein synthesis that are going to help the mitochondria. And then you're lumping in there the B vitamins as indicated on the lab. So you have an integrated lab-based program that can really make a difference for people. And that's kind of the whole goal of all this stuff. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up now for a moment and see if there's any questions that have come in. We have about 5-10 minutes for questions here. I remind you guys, if you want to do some lab interpretation and hang out for 7 one-hour workshops, you get $100 off. You can go check that out with the code.
Dr. Kalish, thank you so much. That was truly amazing, very comprehensive. I really love the major points you hammered home today were, again, regarding the amino acids. I think that's a really, really important point that you discussed. And just the overall integrative approach you took to these case studies, I think is really informative and that all of our practitioners will appreciate. So thank you again, and job well done today.
Thank you.
So we did get a lot of questions here. So let's just jump right into those right now. So the first question is related to glutathione. Question is it best to supplement glutathione itself or to supplement the precursors? I know you had cysteine and glycine on one of those, the previous slides, but in addition, glutamate, some of those 3 amino acid precursors. Is it best to supplement glutathione or the amino acid precursors themselves?
So now let's evaluate them. So well, first of all, let's just agree that glutathione is, let's just say it's the most important molecule in the human body. I'm just going to say that because I have an opinion and I'm just going to say it. Now you could argue with that. You could say something else is more important, but put it in the top 10 no matter what. I would put it as the number 1 thing. So giving glutathione is tempting, and you can do that. And there's all kinds of new forms of glutathione that are well absorbed. However, if you do the labs and the person's low in glycine and they're low in glutathione, if you give the glycine or the N-acetylcysteine, you're getting so many other things done at the same time that glutathione itself wouldn't do, right? Because glycine is one of the 20 amino acids that helps you make all proteins. So if you give the glycine to boost it, assuming glycine is low in the lab, then you're going to have an impact on every cell and tissue of the body. If you give the glutathione, you'll have a great benefit, but not as widespread. So I guess the precursors are better if they test low in them. If they don't test low in them, then I would use the real glutathione.
Makes sense, 100%. Thank you for that. Second question, Dr. Kalish, is you mentioned how glutathione competes with methylation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so every moment of the day, your body has to make glutathione in order to protect your cells. And every moment of the day, your body would like to methylate, because methylation means you're making things, right? You're making cell membranes, you're making hormones, you're making stuff. And when we're under stress and there's a lot of oxidative stress, your body will shut down methylation and send all the nutrients that are usually used to methylate will be directed towards production of glutathione. So in other words, the production of glutathione is the central, maybe the most important thing in the human body. In your body, your cells will prioritize glutathione production and they will sacrifice methylation. And when you look at the pathways, you can see that there's an on-off switch here. If you need to increase your glutathione production, you're going to drop your methylation capacity because it's the same exact nutrients running both pathways. And that's not a mistake or a bad thing. That's just your body trying to maintain the cells and avoid the cells from dying, which what do we call it? Like a corollary of that, or if you extrapolate from that, if you see that the person's low in glutathione, by definition, their methylation got screwed up a long time ago, just as a little aside.
Very interesting. Thank you for that. Sounds very similar to the cortisol shunt process that kind of happens with that chronic excess stress. So thanks for going over that. Question number 3 is kind of related to the first couple, but would it be better to start with supporting digestion in a patient who may be suffering with lack of amino acids with something like hydrochloric acid to help them break down their proteins and absorb amino acids better than just supplementing with a free form amino acids?
Yeah, so when I teach like in the mentorship classes or more complete classes, we have all the body systems, right? We're kind of doing an isolated version today. So usually we do hormone testing and treatment, GI testing and treatment, and then this stuff that we're talking about now, which is more, organic acids and amino acids. So, and then the way that I sequence it in all the programs is that we start off with lifestyle and some adrenal work. We test and correct the gut, and then we get to the stuff that we're talking about now.
Makes sense. So it's chronological and in that fashion in the first place. So glad that we were able to go over the answer. Thank you. All right. Next question. We have just a couple more, Dr. Kalish. Again, fantastic job today. This is just an amazing presentation. This next question is, we went over a lot of deficiencies, which are very common on these types of panels, but is it possible to see some of these pathways working too much or in excess? Is it possible for the mitochondria to be running even better than they could, or is there an optimal Goldilocks zone there where this is just the right area where we want the mitochondria to be running? So instead of a deficiency, maybe in excess, and what does that look like?
Funny that you asked. It looks like this right here, this sample lab here. There, you see that? So you can see fat burning metabolism through the roof, carb metabolism cranked up, citric acid cycle production. All these markers are on the high side, right? So now here's the interesting thing. This is really interesting. This patient, we just had this, oh man, this just happened. Who was that? Oh, it was the skier. It was the skier. So if you are an Olympic level skier and you go out 6-8 hours every day and you just ski, you know what she does now? She doesn't just ski because that's not enough. She's like, oh yeah, you know what we do now? I don't take the lifts anymore. We climb up. She lives in like Jackson Hole, Wyoming. She climbs up these mountains. They do this mountaineering climbing thing up to the top of the mountain. She's like, yeah, it takes about 6 or 7 hours. She's totally low key about it. It only takes about a half an hour, 45 minutes to ski down. So if you're exercising at that level, your labs are going to look like this. Is it a bad thing? Not really. I mean, it shows that you're extremely physically fit and you're capable of making huge amounts of energy. Okay, so this is like a lab display of what that question was asking. And now if this lab came back and the patient was like, I haven't exercised since 1957, and you know, I'm pretty much on the couch or in front of my computer all day long, that's a whole different scenario, right? Because that would mean that there's massive problems with these enzymes not working well. Whereas in a high-level athlete, these high markers show performance at its best. You know, they're working, the system's working. Now, would this person benefit from CoQ10, magnesium, and B vitamins? Like, absolutely. They would help their athletic performance tremendously.
Very good to know. Thank you for going over those differences. And Dr. Kalish, time for one last question here.
Yeah.
We went over, I know you went over the ion panels today, and I know you said that's the common test that you like to use. Is there a reason for that, or is it something that you also would like to use, or would you say the NutrEval or other organic acid tests? Is there a preference there?
Yeah, so the ion panel is identical to the NutrEval. There's also one called a metabolomics test that's very, very similar. I would say almost interchangeable. The real difference is the formatting. And then there's other companies that do organic acids that if you just want to do organic acids that are fine to order as well. So you have a variety of choices there. NutrEvals, metabolomics, organic acids from a couple of different companies. I like the ion panels just because those are the ones that I learned on, but these other ones are newer. And there's some other newer metabolomics tests coming out in 2022. Can we talk about that? I don't know. Well, anyways, we can maybe do a seminar, a webinar on that in the new year, because there's some new stuff coming out next year that's going to be pretty different, not different, but sort of a next gen kind of thing.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. We know that you're on the forefront of all this data and news. So thank you for giving us that little sneak peek to it. So Dr. Kalish, again, thanks so much for answering all those questions. And I know we weren't able to get to everybody's question today. We had quite a few. So please reach out to us after this live class if you still need help. But again, thanks for attending this live class. Huge shout out to Dr. Dan Kalish and the Kalish Institute. Such a helpful and practical presentation today on mitochondrial conditions with a lab-based approach and utilizing supplements for these. So again, Dr. Kalish, thank you for joining us today.
Appreciate it very much. Take care now.
So for everybody who's still on the call, we are still going to have Mr. Adrian Martinez jump on today. He is now here to do a live demo of the Rupa Health portal for all of you. Again, we have a lot of great information here, so feel free to stick around if you'd like to learn more. So again, Dr. Kalish, thank you for presenting, and Adrian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony. Dr. Kalish, always great to see you and listen to your amazing presentation. So thank you again for hopping on this afternoon. And for everybody else, amazing to meet you. My name is Adrian Martinez. I am the head of practitioner partnerships here at Rupa Health. And so just to provide some context of why I'm here today and really what we do. Rupa Health is a platform that's designed to alleviate a lot of the pain points associated with functional lab testing. If you're new to functional lab testing, it's great to get an overview of what some of these pain points might be. And if you've been practicing for quite a while, I'm sure you're familiar with what some of those are. So, quick agenda of what we're going to run through is I'm going to give an overview of Rupa Health, who we are, what we do, why we do it. From there, I'm going to jump into a demonstration of Rupa Health and what we're doing to really build the future of lab work and what that will look like. So what I'll do first is just kind of share my screen so you don't have to look at my face the entire time. And what you're seeing now is the dashboard of Rupa Health. So, let's kind of start off from the top. Who is Rupa Health? What do we do? Why do we do what we do? Well, Rupa Health is a lab testing platform, as I mentioned a moment ago, designed to really alleviate a lot of the pain points associated with these tests for both the practitioner as well as the patient. Why do we do this? Well, we really believe in the power of functional root cause medicine, and we want to make it as accessible to everybody around the world. And right now, unfortunately, there are a lot of pain points associated to that lab work. So what do we do to alleviate some of those pain points? Well, what we've done is we've created a platform that's brought on 20 plus labs in one single place, allowing you as a practitioner or your staff to be able to order from all of these labs without having to go to each individual portal to do so, without actually even having to go and set up an account with each of these labs to do so, right? So streamlining the ability to order all your labs in one place, as well as track the progress, the results, everything, again, without having to get this information from multiple different sources. So what you're looking at here is the lab test catalog. As you can see on the left-hand side, all the lab companies that we work with, over 20 plus labs in one place, offering over 2,000 different tests. You can run searches, you can run filters. I'll show you in a moment how we can create a favorites list, bundles, all that. Again, the idea here being having one account with everything all in one space, aggregating it for you, making your life and your operations simplified. The second component to Rupa Health, which I'll go in a little bit more depth into as this presentation goes along, is the patient experience. So that's where a lot of these pain points might be associated, is that patient experience. Number one, maybe being when it comes to pricing. These tests tend to be cash pay, they're very expensive. So what are we doing to ease that pain and that burden that can oftentimes be put on these patients? Number two is the handholding that can be associated, right? All the questions that can come in, all the support that's required, all the videos, all the phone calls, all basically the things necessary and required to help the patient keep in compliance with taking these tests can take hours out of your day, out of your week, and out of your team's work. And ultimately, that leads to a less efficient business and allowing you to see less patients throughout the week. So I'll show you what that will look like here in a moment. From there, right, the idea being all of your labs coming into one place, making your life simplified and more effective and efficient. So what I'll do throughout this presentation is show you kind of those three main components: how to place an order on Rupa Health, how to track and manage those orders, and then I'll walk through the patient experience. From there, I'll walk through these additional little features that we have, some key features. But if you are interested in scheduling a secondary call with me to go through a more thorough walkthrough and maybe some things that might be specific to your business or your clinic, feel free to reach out directly to me. I'll have my information posted at the end of this quick presentation. So don't worry, you're not going to need to write everything down. I'm more than happy to hop on a specific call with each and individual one of you. So first and foremost, how do you start an order on Rupa Health? Well, we've made that as easy as possible. All you need to start an order on Rupa Health is the patient's first name, last name, email address. From there, we collect everything else directly from the patient. And this does two things, right? Of course, it streamlines things for you to be able to place an order quickly, but also ensures the accuracy of the information in case the patient changes phone numbers or email, or excuse me, or addresses or things of that nature, right? We want to keep things as accurate as possible for you. So this is the orders screen. The first sets of tests that you're going to see up here at the top, They're called bundles. So we can create custom bundles within Rupa Health. A custom bundle being a set of tests, a set of blood panels, a combo of tests or blood panels, and these could be from any one of our partner labs. You can mix and match, and that way it's just one click and all of the tests you're looking to order will be added into your cart straight away. Below that, we have a favorites list. So a favorites list is going to be comprised of individual tests that you're commonly ordering. So that way it's just one single click and those tests will be added into your cart. Again, these are from any test or any lab that you want. I know that Dr. Kalish just mentioned the NutriEval metabolomics, right? We have those straight away right here from Genova. If you're looking to add a organic acids test from Great Plains, it's just one click. Again, all the power of these tests right at your fingertips without having to go to each individual portal to place these tests, saving you time and energy. Below that, you have access to the entire catalog down below, over 2,000 tests. So if you are looking to add a test that's not within your favorites or within a bundle, you of course have access and the ability to find those tests, run filters, simplify everything. Once those tests are added into your cart, you'll see them appear over on the right-hand side. Really cool, just quick feature call out. We have the ability to schedule tests as well. So if you're working with an existing patient and you want to schedule tests out, say 6 months in advance to retest them, we make that as simplified as possible. The idea here, leveraging technology to make life simpler so you don't have to manually hop in and check your notebook as when you're supposed to reorder those tests. We will automate that process for you. Once those kits are added into your cart, they'll appear on the right-hand side. If there's an add-on test available, again, we make that simple as possible. There's a button that will appear. You'll be able to see all of the details that have to do with that test. You can download a copy of the patient instructions. We'll go ahead and send those directly to the patient, but if you want a copy for yourself, that's available for you here. A sample report, any biomarkers will be available to be seen as well. And then of course, all those add-on tests straight away here. Let's talk about pricing. So with all of our pricing, we've negotiated wholesale practitioner rates with all of our labs. And what I mean by that are the same prices that you're getting going directly to any of the labs are going to be the same prices that we offer here at Rupa Health. Not only that, but those are going to be the same prices offered to your patients. So what that means for your patients is if you were generally referring your patients, let's say to order, an organic acids test directly from Great Plains, they would be charged $250, or excuse me, $400. Through Rupa Health, they're charged $250. So immediate cost savings for your patients. The way that we generate our revenue is there's a flat 7% processing and ordering fee that is applied to each order. Now, this is paid for by whoever's paying for the tests. What that means is if you're having us invoice your patient directly, your patients will be the one absorbing that cost, meaning Rupa Health is a free account for you to use and leverage. There's no subscription cost, there's no sign-up fee, none of that. The only time you would ever pay anything is if you decide to pay for the orders. The orders themselves will default to having us invoice the patient directly. But of course, you do have that option of paying for the kits yourself and then billing the patient outside of our platform. That's entirely an option available. Either way, nothing will change. That 7% will still be there, as well as the patient experience will not change. We still want to manage that end-to-end to save you time and energy so you can actually focus on building your business and seeing more patients. With that, you can add notes to the patient as well. So if you're sending these kits to the patient and you want to add specific instructions, you can add those notes to the patient. We can even create templates. So if you're consistently sending the same instructions to your patients, we can create what we call internally a snippet, add that in here, and that way you don't have to rewrite the same instructions over and over. So an example would be if your patients are taking a specific supplement regimen that you want them to continue to take, right, that they might have questions about, feel free to add that in there. Notes for Rupa, this can be anything. I mean, honestly, we work with practitioners who prefer to get the results faxed to them. So if you're in that bucket, feel free to write any note to us here and we'll make sure that we're accommodating you as best we can. And then Icd-10 codes. These tests tend to be cash pay. We actually here at Rupa can do multiple forms of payment, which I'll get into in a moment when I walk through the patient experience. But if your patient is interested in submitting a super bill to insurance for reimbursement after the order goes through, you have that opportunity here to add Icd-10 codes. We'll go ahead and send your patient a template on how to create that and generate that super bill. From there, they'll go ahead and submit that to insurance for reimbursement, but we can handle that as well. We can manage super bills. But if nothing else, it's as simple as clicking send a patient. And that's how you go ahead and create an order from 20 plus labs on Rupa Health within just a matter of seconds. Once you send that order through, you're going to be able to track everything within our dashboard. So right now, what I'm going to show you is how we're tracking and managing all the results as these orders go through. So on the main dashboard is where we're going to go ahead and do that. You can search for specific patient information. You can filter by the status of that order. So we'll consistently update the status of those orders from payment pending, meaning we're waiting for patient payment, to the results in, and of course, any in progress orders. So if I want to click into my in progress orders, I'll get an indication, an idea as to, of course, where that order stands, when those samples arrived at the lab, and when I can expect those results to be in. And if there's any delays, we'll always update you as well as the patient so you can plan accordingly. From there, you're alerted via email as the results come in, and then you're able to hop right into your Rupa Health dashboard. You can download the results. One thing to know on the results is these are the same exact results that you would be getting directly from the labs. We're not interpreting, we're not providing our own version of these results. They're the same exact results that you're getting from these labs. You can send them to the patients. We'll never send the results to the patients without your consent. There is a setting if you prefer to have the results just automatically sent to the patients. We found that the majority of our practitioners do not prefer that. So you have full control over how you're getting those results over to your patients. You can schedule a clinical consultation. So should you need some assistance interpreting the results with the lab, you're able to schedule a consultation directly with Genova or Diagnostic Solutions or any one of the labs that you're ordered from. You're able to schedule that consultation with them through Rupa Health. And then, of course, you'll have access to that requisition. From there, you can mark that as reviewed. So it'll change the status of that order so you know that you've reviewed these results with your patients. We're working on building out an API to integrate with a number of different EHRs and EMRs. So look for that coming up in the future for us. And then, of course, you have the option of ordering again for your patients. I showed you the scheduling earlier, but again, this is just another way that we can get access to that scheduling feature that we offer here. So with that, y'all, just to recap, I've gone over so far how to place your order on Rupa Health, as well as how to track and manage the results once you place that order. What I'm going to show you next is going to be the patient experience. The patient experience can oftentimes and sometimes be something that's overlooked, but has a huge impact on your business in a number of ways, not just from an efficiency standpoint, but also the patient experience reflects directly on your business, right? So the better patient experience that we can provide, the better result it's going to have in your business in a number of ways. So let's talk about how we're actually leveraging technology to provide an experience that's come to be expected in 2021. What does that look like? So as soon as you place an order on Rupa Health, we can effectively take it from there. We'll communicate out to the patient that the order has been placed for them. Those communications will vary whether the patient's being billed or you're being billed or you're billing the patient outside of Rupa. The kits will be shipped out within 24 hours of payment. Now, that's another thing I want to highlight. We are a little bit different than some of the labs. We will only ship the kits out once payment's been received. So, keep an eye on that. We'll send over our own curated FAQs, instructions, videos to the patients, and then we'll continue with follow-ups. We'll automate the follow-ups. And then from there, your clinic is notified as the results come in. Now, what these automations and what really leveraging our software and our platform has done, it's resulted in a more fluid patient experience and compliance rates up above 85%. Which is pretty amazing, right? So what does that all look like? Well, here's the communications email that will go out once you place that order. And this is assuming that the patient is the one paying for the order. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the email. Hi, Joshua, Dr. Jordan has ordered these tests for you. From there, we will introduce who we are and we'll highlight the different payment options that we accept. I know I mentioned that we would talk about this a little bit earlier. Not only can we do cash and credit, but we can do HSA, we can do FSA, and we can even set up a 3-month interest-free payment plan with the patient. All this in the idea of lowering the barrier of entry to get access to these oftentimes very expensive tests. With that, with the 3-month interest-free payment plan, for example, we'll ship those kits out after the very first payment is made. We're not waiting for the entirety of the payment to come through. We'll ship that out after the first payment and then collect everything else at a later date. So again, the idea here is to do really anything that we can to get these kits in the hands of the patients. From there, on the right-hand side, you'll see the information that we collect from the patients, shipping information, billing information, demographic information. We will highlight the test that was ordered for them, and then, of course, break down the pricing. So we make everything very transparent to the patient as to what is being ordered for them, and, of course, the costs associated to that. What I'll show you now is what the communications will look like should you be the one paying for the tests and then billing the patient outside of Rupa. Now, there's a number of reasons why clinics might be doing this, right? For example, an interpretation fee. At this moment, you can't add an interpretation fee or any upcharge to the cost of your tests. So if that is something that you do within your practice, this would be the best method for you to order the tests and then bill the patient outside of our platform, but nothing will change in terms of the patient experience. But the communications will look a little bit different. Essentially, what we're going to be collecting is the demographic information and the shipping information from the patient. We're still going to highlight the test that was ordered for them, but you'll notice that we're not collecting any billing information and we're not showing the cost of the test to the patient. That's entirely up to you to manage outside of us, okay? From there, we will communicate out to the patient once those kits have been shipped out. And then we will send over curated FAQs and instructions and videos on how to take the test. So this is, again, something that oftentimes would be on your shoulders to manage, to hop on a call with the patient, to curate your own instructions or videos, right? We'll walk them through how to fill out the requisition forms. If there's a blood draw required, we can help coordinate that with the patient directly as well by sending over options based on the lab that they're working with. If they can't work with those labs that are sent over to them, they reach out to us and our team, and we'll go ahead and facilitate and send over additional options. If there's even questions relating to the test on how to take the test, they'll reach out to us and our team, and we will facilitate answering them on your behalf. Of course, if there's anything medically related, we'll send them back your way, but we want to essentially manage this process, again, with the idea of freeing up your time so you can focus on seeing more patients. On the right-hand side, you'll see an example of the Dutch Complete test instructions. And as you saw previously, if you ever want a copy of any of the instructions, you can find them easily within the details. And we even have a master list of all the instructions as well. This is just reiterating the phlebotomy and requisition information, and we'll follow up. I mean, we'll automate these follow-ups, see if they have any questions. If the patient hasn't completed the test yet, we'll continue to follow up to see if they need anything. They do have the option of canceling or delaying the test should they want to. If they decide to cancel the order entirely, you'll be alerted as to why, because they do have to write a reason within there. And then from there, you are alerted via email as the results come in. So all tests within one place, all results within one place. Perfect, right? So just to recap, what we've covered so far are kind of the three core features of Rupa Health: how to place an order and track and manage, as well as the patient experience. What I'm going to show you just for the last couple minutes here is over here on the left-hand side, some amazing other additional features we have here at Rupa Health, because we're more than just a place with those three main components. We consider ourselves a functional medicine platform. So this is somewhere where you're not only just signing up for a Rupa Health account to order all your labs, but continue to learn as well. Currently, you're within Rupa University, right? We all just listened to an amazing presentation from Dr. Kalish, and that's not the first time that we've done this. We continue to host these classes with Dr. Anthony on a weekly basis. So feel free to hop in. You can watch these live classes every single week live, or if you happen to miss a class, don't worry. We record the classes. We'll upload them into this catalog here, so you're able to have access to any previous class here on Rupa Health. On top of these live classes through Rupa University, we have a podcast which Dr. Anthony hosts, which is amazing. It's growing so fast. We're in the top 25 of podcasts right now in the medical industry, which is so impressive. We have a magazine as well. So basically consider us a place where you're going to be able to come and continue to learn and get educated on the most recent trends impacting the functional medicine landscape. So super excited to be a part of this. Continue to keep up with us here. If you have any questions regarding Rupa Health, as promised, here is my contact information. Very simple. It's just adrian@rupahealth.com. There's my phone number as well. Feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text, whatever you need to get in contact. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Hope you have a happy holiday season, and looking forward to connecting with a few of you to get all started.